Well, hello everyone, and welcome to lesson 9, Mavericks and Learning. So, you might be like, what? What is this all about? So, I'm going to explain what this Mavericks and Learning is all about. So, I based these ideas off some of the readings that I've been doing. So, that's my professional reading that I've been doing there on the left, and then just some musings from my own thoughts on education and my own experience in education. So basically, you might be going like, what is a maverick? So I went to a display a few years ago at the Glenbow Museum in Calgary. And at this display, there was a Mavericks of Alberta uh, display. And these Mavericks of Alberta, the way that they defined Maverick was this person would shape history with their ingenuity, their ambition, and their adventurous spirit. They were unorthodox and independent minded people, and they were unique, inspired, determined, risk taking, forward looking, creative, and eager for change characters. So I was impressed with these particular Mavericks of Alberta in Alberta history because they really pushed and they really challenged what was going on in Alberta at the time. So in like 1905 or 1915 or 1925, they really pushed the envelope and really were instrumental in sort of heading Alberta in some really positive ways. And so it sort of always has been in my mind that I'd love to form a lecture around the concept of mavericks in being mavericks and how the whole idea of mavericks links to learning. So I got to thinking about how if we thought about ourselves as mavericks, so shaping history with our ingenuity, ambition, adventurous spirit, being unorthodox, being unique, inspired, determined, risk taking. If we had those characteristics as teachers, I think that could be amazing. I think we could have some real impact on our school system. So that's sort of the foundation and the definition of mavericks that I'm going to be using for our time together today. So if we believe that learning is a process and not a product, if we believe that learning is changing knowledge, beliefs, behaviors, and attitudes, actually changing, and that this change has lasting impact on our students, if that's what we really believe learning is, then how do we get there? And these are some of the ideas that I've been pulling from my readings, that I know from experience, that I've seen work out in practicums. So this is, I haven't had a good rant at you yet. So this is a little bit more of a rant than a lecture. So here we go. Stay with me. So, excuse me, I need to get rid of this frog in my throat, first of all. So how do we get to be a maverick teacher, and how do we get to maverick teaching? So I think we provide authentic, hands-on, real-world experiences to our students, like community classrooms, like what you've been experiencing already this fall, like connecting with community, like writing to a paper with a real audience, making our writing projects have some bite and an actual real audience, like possibly reading to seniors, taking your upper elementary kids and actually going out to a seniors residence and reading to seniors, maybe not during COVID, but sometime later when COVID is not so prevalent, like creating stories with tech tools and then actually sending those stories out there, like your Picha Kucha presentation, where we loved your work so much that we wanted you to share it and we wanted you to get it out there. So that's how do we get there? We provide authentic, hands-on, real world experiences for our students. We also relate what they are learning in the classroom out to their lives and their lives up to the classroom. I think what happens is lots of times kids only see ideas or concepts in the classroom and then they never actually see it in real life. So what we need to do is look at what are the concepts that they're actually seeing in real life and bring them into the classroom. So think about the concept of loss. So some of you did lessons on loss. These kids are probably going to see loss at some time in their life. And if they're connecting then what they learned in the classroom to what they're actually seeing in real life, then that's where we get into this idea of changing knowledge, beliefs, behaviors, and attitudes. We're actually then impacting how they react to losing something or losing a person or a pet in their life in their real life. So we need to get away from these are concepts that these kids only ever see in school, to melding what they see in school and what they see in real life together. Because if they only see it in school, how much change is that going to actually have on them in their real life? None, because they never see it outside of school. Okay, point 3, ask them to think critically more than we ask them to recall. Okay, so I did a little bit of looking back, and when I taught Ed Psych in my first year here, which was 6 years ago, I did lots of recall. I'm like, here's your multiple choice questions, and tell me about this person and his or her philosophy. And now I look back and I'm like, what was I doing? You could look that up in about 10 seconds online. So my last couple years, I switched it to take-home exams where you had to critically analyze the philosophy or the concept and then pull in an example from life. So it was so much better. I was just so much better. I actually am a little bit ashamed at the tests that I gave even 6 years ago, about that they were just so much recall, in that I asked very little critical analysis. So I think we really need to get them to think critically more than we ask them to simply recall. Can our grade 2s, our grade 4s, our grade 6s think critically? Absolutely. But what we give them is recall all the time. Almost all the time in there. Okay, and then the next one, engage them in learning projects that are important and interesting to them. So if somebody is super interested in squirrels, see, here's the squirrel. He's got a good reputation now. Someone's super interested in squirrels, then they're going to be that much more interesting to either read about squirrels or write about squirrels. And so if they're not interested in squirrels, though, why are we asking these kids to read and write about squirrels when they're not really interested? When there's just the world is our oyster. There's just so much literature and so many writing opportunities for kids to engage in something that they actually are truly passionate about. Okay, get to really know our students as learners. Ask them what they want to learn and what they already know. They know what they know. They know what they know, and they know what they want to know. So I think we just have to ask them. Quick interview, kids will tell you, and then that can formulate how you go forward. I think we need to get away from standardized tests that only focus on memorization. I didn't get to rant so much at you guys about standardized tests, but they definitely have a place as a snapshot, but they have become a monster. They have become a driving force in our school, and all they were ever meant to be was a quick snapshot and a quick evaluation tool. But they've become, unfortunately, a monster. In the States, they have standardized tests like SATs. They have become the absolute driver of elementary, secondary, and post-secondary education. I'm really proud. I read, this was a while ago, I read about California. All the universities in California are not requiring standardized tests intrinsic requirements into the post-secondaries, which I'm super happy about because California is a huge driver. So I think you need to rally, and you need to have your voice heard that standardized tests that only focus on memorization should be abolished, because they take so much time and so much money in education that could be so much better spent in other places. See, now I'm really getting into the rant here. Okay, focus on skills that thinking deeply, communicating clearly, leading with empathy, and resolving conflict. Okay. This is such a different focus than simply talking about content. And this is our job as a teacher. These are these sort of this almost this hidden curriculum, which is absolutely crucially important. So they have to be thinking deeply. They have to be able to communicate clearly. They have to have empathy and be able to think about the person and how what that person is living through, and how to resolve conflict. I think that those are skills that we have to be thinking about along with our content. That we can't just be focused on the content. Okay, where am I? How students demonstrate proficiency and not test-taking ability. Again, things like we need to, I think, start to be thinking about e-portfolios, oral examinations where they just talk through the concept, poster presentations, showcase evenings, right? Taking tests is not real life. So I don't take tests anymore as a post-secondary instructor, but I have an evaluation process. I have to show what I'm doing. I have to put like an e-portfolio kind of thing together. I have to keep scholarly activity reports, like that kind of thing. Yeah, absolutely. But I don't sit and do multiple choice tests anymore. And very few careers, if any, have that as part of what they do. So we need to get away from that, because again, it connects back to that first point, the provide authentic hands-on real world experiences. That taking tests is not a real world experience. Having trouble with that this morning. Okay, bring back the joy in learning. Kids in kindergarten are so excited to go to school. They can't wait. And then by grade 6, they hate school. We unfortunately pound the joy out of school. And I think you guys need to be the Mavericks that bring the joy back into school through your decisions that you make as a teacher. Okay, promote risk-taking and failure and mistakes. I think we are a culture that does not honor failure and mistakes, and we have kids who are paralyzed by failure. But it is a huge part of learning, and I think we have to stop protecting them from failure. We have to embrace failure and mistakes, and unfortunately what we do now is we punish failure and mistakes. You get a low grade, then you don't get to go on to the next grade, or you don't get into the program that you want. We actually really punish failure and mistakes. And I think we need to switch that to actually really honoring and really seeing it as part of a learning process. Where we give them opportunities to be truly creative. Not that everybody does the snowflake and they all end up being perfectly the same, but really connecting the ideas that they have in their head with things that are outside the box, and really allowing them, and again, really honoring ideas and concepts that push maybe you as a teacher, but definitely push the cultural box. Another one, actually teach students to think, not memorize facts about not memorize facts about how to write, but to be a writer. So I pulled it into the writing example. So oftentimes I think we talk a lot about writing. We talk about the opening sentence and the paragraph and, adding in vocab, but then we don't allow them to write. So we need to get them to write as much as possible, and to not just memorize the facts about writing, but to actually write, and to be and again, to act like an editor, not to change their writing, but to make their writing even better. Okay, and finally, put books in their hands that are amazing and they cannot put down. There's just so much amazing literature out there, but you have to get to know young adult literature, and then you have to get it in their hands. Do whatever it takes to get it in their hands, because then the more they read, the more they write, the more they write, the more they read, and then it's just this beautiful cycle, instead of this vicious cycle of not reading, not wanting to write, and it going down the other way. Okay, so I would challenge you to say, maybe it's time for some of these things that I know you are going to see in classrooms, and I know you're going to see these in a couple weeks in your practicums. I've been at this post-secondary game for about 15 years, and I thought it would take a few years to bring in sort of inquiry-based, critical thinking, Dewey kind of thought, but there are still way too many boring, time-consuming, soul-damaging teaching practices that are going on out there that I want to challenge you and charge you with the vision of being a maverick and saying no. Giving these kids a packet for their reading program is not how these kids are going to become passionate readers and writers. Will you add, and this is always a tricky thing, especially at this time, going out into practicum, because it's tricky, because it's like, well, this is what my practicum teacher is doing. You know, you have to play the game a little bit, and we all understand that. But I want you to be thinking, wow, look at the impact that these packets are having on kids, and what could I do to change these things up or to engage these kids even more. Okay, so maybe this is time to go. Worksheets and packets where the kids just get, here's the reading packet, okay, hand that in. Here's the math packet, hand that in. Here's the science packet. It's soul damaging to kids. Leveled books as their only reading. I think we have to get away from that. We have to, or else our kids will not become readers, and then they won't become writers, and then it's an actual really nasty, vicious circle. Maybe it's time that reading paragraphs in programs with online tests are gone. If that's the only thing kids are reading are just paragraphs, and then they answer a few multiple choice questions on it, and then they get to go up a level or they get a prize, that's not real Maverick teaching. Is there a place for that? Absolutely. There's some places for that. But if that is the basis of your reading and writing program, then I want you to challenge yourself to think more in a Maverick way. And finally, yeah, standardized tests, don't get me going. We'll be here for a couple hours. We need to rally against getting rid of standardized tests because there's very, very little true educational value. If it actually was just what it was meant to be, it would be a snapshot to see, oh, my kids are actually missing this whole concept. That would be amazing. But it's grown into becoming way bigger than it needs to be. Okay, so I want to say, be a Maverick. Don't sit back and let these things just happen as a teacher. Analyze, critically analyze, empathize with your student, ask your student, engage, bring in community classroom experiences, bring in amazing literature, and inspire your students to be excited, committed, independent readers and writers. Thus endeth the rant for today.